Welcome back. You're still watching Steve Jobs, the icon, a special tribute to Steve Jobs, the former CEO of Apple. And now joining us in the studio with me is Mahesh Murthy, Managing Director of Seed Fund, and also Alok Kejriwal, who's the CEO of Contest to Win. Now guys, obviously it's a very, very sad day in tech today. But Apple has been what Steve Jobs is now. Apple has been considered Steve Jobs. So once you take the man out of the equation, what's left for the company now?
So maybe I'll take a shot at it. I mean, Apple's identified very closely with Steve Jobs, but you must remember Jobs also started Pixar, and Pixar is running a beautiful life inside Disney right now. He started Next, which is running a beautiful life inside Apple right now. I think you can trust that he's put enough of a succession plan in place for it to be run out there. I do wonder though that if you look at the soul of the company. When you identify very clearly the soul of Apple is a company with a soul, and the soul of Apple was Steve Jobs. The soul of Pixar was John Lasseter. So I don't think Tim Cook is necessarily that soul of the company. I could be wrong. Maybe it's Jonathan Ive, design guy. So I think that I'm waiting to see what happens on that front. But that's really my take.
Alok, your take? Same thoughts?
I'm kind of confused. I mean, there's a momentum which will carry on. So 6 months, 1 year, that's great. There's imagineering required, right? Now this is an age where you say, Steve Jobs famously said the consumer should not know what he wants. Who on earth can say that?
Exactly.
So who's going to say this is the next iPad and you don't know that, but you do need it? I think that challenge is very vast. And I kind of liken it to rock bands. When the lead dies or lead moves on, the rock band is no more.
The rock band is no more.
So and so be it, right? So be it.
So be it indeed. I'm going to get Sudhir back on the show. Sudhir, so do you share the same thoughts? If you take the man out of the equation, that Steve Jobs, will the company still remain the same? As Alok said, will the rock band die?
I think if you look at the startup world, the founder has played a very significant role. But if you actually analyze what Steve has been doing, so we know from Twitter and from the blogger world that Steve was actually involved till 1 month before. He was actually checking the Google icon on the iPhone and so on and so forth. So he clearly was so involved. So I wouldn't be, and obviously he also knew at some point that his death was imminent, right? Because he timed it, he resigned, he was only moving away from the limelight. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's actually written the code for Apple for the next 12 months. But as Alok rightfully said on the show, you don't know what you don't know, right? And the consumer doesn't know what he doesn't know, and Steve is no more. So I would say that the company is certainly not going to grow at the same growth path and certainly not going to invent itself as quickly as it has so far at least.
Well, I'm going to take a cue from that, Sudhir. Well, obviously, Steve Jobs is a very calculative man, so this exit strategy must have been planned for the longest time. But how much of a roadmap can you plan? So what do you think Steve Jobs has probably planned for the next 3 to 5 years for Apple now?
So maybe I'll take a shot at that. I think the one characteristic of all Apple products under Steve Jobs' current reign is that they're all high-end products. They're one of those, I want to have those products. They're extraordinarily profitable products. I mean, if you take a $500 iPhone and take down the cost of components, it's less than $100. It's 80% gross margin in that phone. And all of this has happened because he's been able to build this magic and aura about this and this extraordinary remarkableness. The first sign of that faltering, I thought, was yesterday during the iPhone 4S launch, when it was a damn squib, frankly, right? And I think the call is going to be a hard call for the company to sit back and say, can I still depend on that magic to carry me through, or do I need to start democratizing my product? Do I need to start bringing down the prices to less? You can't. I mean, can they still hold a 80% gross margin? I think not. I think you will also see in a country like India, the reason Apple is revered, but nobody owns an Apple, is because everybody thinks it's great, it's beautiful, but it's too expensive for me.
Agreed.
But as Samsung has come in and come with products with the same Apple philosophy, it's Apple for the masses, and pretty much taken over India. So in a country like India, you will find a lot of Apple, will probably need to lower the price of the product and play like everybody else and not have this, once godly stature. I think you will see a lot of change happening out here.
So Alok, Apple should become mass market now. How much steam is left in Apple now?
I completely, kind of have a contrarian view, right? I don't think it's about Apple versus Apple. It's about the fact that there are many more intelligent men out there beyond Steve Jobs, right? Somebody shows you the path, a lot of people know how to carry that torch. I mean, let's agree that Steve Jobs has been showing the world how to build great things for the last 10 years. And it's not just one person on earth who can do it. He's no more, but there are lots of people out there. I mean, we all owned a Nokia and we were very proud of it, right? Not anymore. So I don't know about a Samsung or a Motorola, but I bet that there are lots of companies out there who are saying, I can make the next Apple. and Steve Jobs may not be there to compete with them anymore. My bet is that, Apple will have to do, you cannot change the DNA of a company. Just
True.
because somebody is knocking on your gates, you can't say, oh, I'm going to be price sensitive now. You are who you are because you're price insensitive. I go to Apple and don't look at the price. I take my credit card and say, I want that,
I
right?
want that, I want it
Yeah.
for
When
what
I
it
go to
is.
buy Samsung, I say, hey, how much does it cost? And I become the dukandar, right? But there it's like emotion. So my point is, Tim Cook's going to do what he's got to do, but a lot of new headwinds and tailwinds are going to blow their side, right? And it's a big, cruel world out there.
All right, so time for final words. So is this going to be a time for competitors to shine, Alok? And, from inside Apple, other than Steve Jobs or anyone else, who will be the next rising star?
I think absolutely the world is going to shine, right? I mean, this is the world of consumer meets product delight. And it's no longer some stupid looking phones that people carried like a pager. I think Apple has a humongous amount of, entrepreneurial DNA. I also assume, and that's what I've noticed in a lot of startups, the entrepreneur overshadows a lot of people. People don't have the courage to come up and say, hey, Mr. Steve Jobs, I can make that Google icon even better than you can. That opportunity has come now. So people will shine and people will want to emulate him. What he's done is he's created a path to emulation, which is, I think, the signature event.
Mahesh, path to emulation, who do you think is going to be the next big thing?
I think in some ways, Apple is at a point where if you look at it from the stock price, revenue, whatever it is, it's going to be hard for it to continue to match up to where it is. The board will have to take some calls to say, look, can we continue? And I disagree with Alok. And I think they will need to start looking after for a more mass audience. They will not make a Janta phone. It's unlikely Apple will make a $100 phone, a 4,000 rupee phone or whatever the sort. But I think they will have to figure out that they will not be always able to charge the premium. Yes, there'll be brilliant people. There's a Jonathan Ive who's designed a lot of the stuff at Apple. There will be people, also the Apple RDF, the reality distortion field, for a long time has depended on Steve Jobs.
True, very true.
After looking at Tim Cook, I don't think, he commands the RDF, right? There's no reality being distorted around him. The light waves don't bend around him, they go and bounce back. I think it's a hard task. Some people may come up in Apple, some people may leave and find homes elsewhere. Companies may come in and find it easier to hire people away from Apple. All of that it's going to be a great time for the mobile market. And this is not, I don't think anybody's celebrating that he's passed on. I think everybody understands he's shown what nobody else thought possible in this business. But because he's shown the way, like Alok said, I think a lot of people are going to say, I can walk down the path. Whether I'm at Apple or I'm outside of Apple, I can walk down that path.
Can I leave a parting shot? I mean, I think, look, honestly, there are 10 people who know who Steve Jobs is. 100 million people who buy Apple products, they don't know who Steve Jobs is. They know the product.
Well, that might be the case in India, but not
I'll be
otherwise.
surprised. I mean, overall, ask a tween boy or a girl, they love their iPod, they love their iPhone, they love their Mac, they love their iPad. Ask housewives in middle America, they love what they're using, right? Who knows who Steve Jobs is? Yeah, there's some guy there who's making whatever. So I think we've even, he's far more bigger than the brand.
But everybody in the stock market knows that, right?
That's okay. We're not talking stock, we're talking company, right?
We're talking company.
Yeah.
All right, so final thoughts from Mahesh Murthy and Alok Kejriwal. Alok Kejriwal clearly thinks that Apple will not turn dukandar and make cheaper phones, but Mahesh, you're of the opinion that this will obviously turn mass market now.
It'll turn a little more mass market. I mean, I think it'll be hard for Apple to keep its stock price up with its, especially the iPhone 4S is not going to do it. They'll have to figure out that they'll either need to innovate faster. This was disappointing. After 16 months to come out with a phone that's 1 year behind the market was disappointing. I think they will need to really be slightly more open to the thought that there are others around them. Look, everybody else learned from them. Samsung used to make crappy phones. Motorola made crappy phones, but they've all learned from Apple. And
all right, sir.
That's what's going to happen.
All right, sir. That's what's going to happen. Apple might have to turn mass market, but hopefully we'll see great innovations from Apple coming in the future. Thank you so much for joining us on the show today. And it's a sad day, but we pay tribute to Steve Jobs, the icon. And with that, we have to take another break on the show. But coming up on the other side, many people around the world are actually paying tribute to Steve Jobs in their own way. We capture all those precious moments.